So I've chosen to be an electric healer in the game DC Universe Online. This video will detail everything you need to know about being an electric healer. You will find timestamps to the relevant sections that you're looking for in the description of this video, as well as the comment section. So if you need to skip to a specific section or rewatch a specific section, follow those timestamps. So first, we'll get into the skill point spec here. So in terms of skill point spec for electric healing relies more on burst heals. You'll be using a lot of power, not so much power to the point where you're spamming it, but enough so that you're not going to have a lot of opportunity to regen your weapons. So if you pick a hybrid power set or a hybrid focus, you need to be able to regen with your weapons in between combat. So you need to be able to do weapon combos where there'll be situations where you will be able to do that as an electric healer. But more so often than not, you're going to be super power spec. It's just the safer option. Now going to the center, the critical healing chance, you're going to max that out at 20. The critical healing magnitude, you're going to max that out at 40. Restoration, you're going to max out at 295. And this is where it kind of splits. We're going to touch on the other skill points here before we go back into the main tree. So for iconic powers, all you need to take is Pheromone Bloom. For super speed, you can take any one from the second tree. You can take dash attacks, doesn't really matter. It's just basically just to drop you down. So then you want to take the movement mode innates. Once again, this is more of a bonus, but having power back as a healer is very beneficial, especially if, say, like the controller goes down or for whatever reason. I'd much rather always have power as a healer. If you are in a Gemini Spam Spec, which I will touch on in the loadout section, you will take Speed Drain. Just because it's a 25% supercharge, it has nothing to do with healing. It's just for the Gemini, which I'll touch on why, but it's just because it's a 2500 supercharge. Now to weapon spec, this is more of a personal preference. For me, I like to use dual flurry shotting. Just so that I can feel like I'm doing something else. You can use Handblaster Solar Flame for a little bit more regen. You can also use Brawling Shuriken Storm if you need a little bit more AoE damage. Flurry Shotting I tend to do just for not only practice, but I mean Flurry Shotting is great for single target on the boss fights. Flurry Shotting also keeps you very mobile. So if you need to dodge mechanics, you can easily do that and float in midair and dodge. Where Brawling Shuriken Storm keeps you a little bit more stationary. You can still jump, but it's much more viable movement in flurry shotting. So it does take a little bit more skill points, so it just depends on your preference. But I would certainly take it and spec into the weapon mastery. If you're using Brawling, you would have to spec into the Brawling Shuriken Storm mastery anyway. So you'd have to max out the Brawling tree, max out the Martial Arts tree to take Shuriken Storm. You'd have to for the combo. If you really don't want to put any skill points into weapon, then you'd be taking Handblaster and going down to Solar Flame. Then you only need 3 skill points in your weapon rather than like the 21 or so for your weapon mastery spec. So that's the much cheaper option, but it just depends on your personal preference. There's no, you have to choose this weapon as a healer. It just depends on what you want to do. So going back to the main spec here. Obviously, I'm not going to spec all the other 572 skill points. That wouldn't be practical whatsoever. But when you look into the healer formula, so if I go back to my stats here and go into restoration, so it does say restoration is combined with dominance to determine the potency of your healing and shield abilities. Now, for shielding, that is the case. For the base healing formula, multiplier is 30% of your rest or 25% of your dominance. The only thing is it's much harder to spec into dominance, or in terms of how much dominance you'd actually get. So what I'll do is I'll pull up an example with the healing formula here. So this is going to be the example here as a 342's healer with 2 OP items, full buffs. There's no artifacts, so it has a base resto of 41,182, and then a base dominance of 3,203. So in terms of super hard spec, you're looking at 61% resto, 15% dom. So with 0 skill points spec'd into it, you'd have 20,812 in terms of the base healing multiplier. And with 100 skill points into it, you're looking at 20,991. So that's less than a 1% increase in your base healing multiplier. So the only practical way to get dominance is by wearing OP items, what we refer to in the game as omnipotence items. So if you're looking at this, so I'll touch on the gear in a moment, but this is a healer head CR295. This is a previous OP head that's from the Wonderverse DLC. It's 292, so it's 3 items less, but you gain over 2,500 dominance. So to be able to get 2,500 dominance, if you're skip becking skill points, you'd have to go over like 200 skill points in a dom. So it's just not practical whatsoever. You know, as a healer, you're not going to be jumping 200 dominance or 200 skill points in dominance when you can simply run just an OP item. So it does drop your resto by only 129, which is going to be marginal. So this is the moral of the story with healing. So yes, dominance is included in your healing formula, but just disregard it. You'll be getting dominance through wearing OP items. So, like for example, there's the OP face. It's got 788 dominance. The OP head would be a large. You know, the OP back is I don't have it on test server here, but we do have the OP back in game, which is going to be once again have extra dominance. So healers will get their dominance for their shields and healing from the gear itself, not the skill points. So what does that mean for actually what we spec? So you've got a couple options here. I do recommend putting at least 100 into might and power. What this will do is get you the 10% power increase. So you can see 10% power increase, so an increase to your power pool, which is helpful as healers. A little bit less if you're running a purple healing ray, but it just depends on what your artifact setup is. So we'll touch on that. I know I'm kind of jumping around and bringing you skipping ahead a few times, but purple healing ray will return power for you. But if you're not running that artifact, then it helps to have that power pool itself, and everything else I would put into health. So obviously I'm not going to put the 295, but you get the idea. If you're putting like 40 skill points in health, at least you're increasing your health pool for your own survivability. Because last thing you want to do is be, hit by a mechanic in raid or hit by a boss attack or anything like that, and you're dead, because then you can't heal. So a whole group is suffering until they get your res. Or at least if you have extra health, increases your health pool, increases your survivability, as well as the defense you'd get from wearing an OP item. So the defense, as you can see here, you're increasing defense by 488, 722 health. So the OP item is not only going to give you extra dominance, but it's also going to be giving you extra survivability in terms of defense and health. So that's just how we spec there. So don't worry about taking any dominance as a healing whatsoever. Your primary focus is going to be maxing out the critical healing and restoration, and then you're kind of splitting the rest between might and power, just for your power pool, and then health for your survivability. So we'll touch on the gear mods here. So for helmet, it's going to be depending on what you're running. So if you're running, I'll touch on loadouts here, but if you're running, say, just your main supercharge, then yeah, you take where is group transducer? So you'd be running just group transducer, or if you're running like a Gemini spam build, then you take like a pheromone bloom, like I took from the iconic tree, which would be right here, because that would be your first supercharge you'd be spamming, or technically you do speed drain as well, but I would just prefer bloom. Your neck mod, always going to be focused restoration. Now back mod for electric, we've got a couple options here. So my personal preference would be to take flux. Biocapacitor is also another one that you could run as well. There's not too many. It just depends on what your rotation you're running. For me, we'll touch on artifacts as well, but Biocapacitor is made a little bit redundant by running the Page of Destiny artifact, and Page of Destiny artifact is one of the primary artifacts you're always going to have regardless of the rotation for healing. So it just depends on your choice. So Flux would be your personal shield. Biocapacitor, if you're not running Page of Destiny, then for sure you run Biocap. So for example, we're just going to take Flux, because it never hurts to have your shield off cooldown, your 4-man. Chest mod. So for this one, just to make sense, you're aware of quick healing only impacts the healings you receive. So just by quick healing, if you read that, it's not a bonus up for the healing you do. That's the healing that you receive. So you don't need to, as a healer, you're not going to be taking any damage. Really, you shouldn't be, unless just any mechanics or there's some kind of like a dot effect or something like that. So you don't need to worry about your healing in. This one, you can be running power efficiency. So you want your superpowers to cost 5% less power so you can use them more often. Now, leg mods, nothing's going to scale, so you don't have to worry about it. Not like you'd be using Attract Overcharge or Spark Barrage as a healer anyway, so it's pointless. And the healing from the leg mods haven't scaled in a very long time in this game, so don't worry about it. Hand mods, there's nothing going to be consequential for healing. You're just going to be taking max damage. And nothing else will apply in that situation as a healer. And for your foot mod, I personally would recommend Tumbling Mastery. Just helps with your survivability, increases your dodge roll distance, and then you can't be countered while you're rolling as well. And then finally for weapon, personally, you've got a choice here. I personally take, as a healer, I want as much power as possible, because I know if I have as much power as possible, I can heal. So for example, if I take Restorative Adapter, weapon attacks heal you and 3 other group members for a small amount. That's going to be those heals aren't going to save anyone. Where if I get a power bonus, like if I'm out of power and the replenishing adapter procs, and I get like my 4,000 or 5,000, 6,000 power back, if I just hit one group heal or one instant recharge from a healer, priority heal, that's going to be way more damage, or way more healing, sorry, you get from Restorative Adapter. So kind of power is king with healing. If I have power, then I know I can heal. And I know my personal heals will be much greater than anything else that any proc will give me. So now touching on augments. So augments are what you'd be typically expect is going to be always restorating. So restoring, this is your adaptive augments are going to be different for each individual DLC episode. So for example, these ones are Flashpoint. That's why they look like this, and they start restoring Speed Force cell. So the name is going to be different depending on what episode you're currently at. But as long as it says restoring or restorative, then you're fine. It's resto. And then your origin augments are always going to be restoring implants. Now this screen may look a bit different depending on your mentor. So my mentor is Superman, that's why it looks like this. If your mentor is Cersei or Batman, it's still going to be the same type. It's still going to say restoring, but it's just the UI is going to look a bit different. So if that looks different from what you're seeing from my screen, don't be alarmed, but always going to be restoring. Okay, so to touch on artifacts. Artifacts for healings are split into 2 different categories. So you have pure healing, and then you have your Gemini spam. What's Gemini spam? You're using either Gemini. So if you look at the example, I'm reading Caster's Watch. So Caster's Watch has a tanker healer roll. So it restores 3% health and 2% supercharge every second. So when Caster's Watch expires, all the allies within it receive healing for the health restored by Caster's Watch. And it also, at rank 200, grants you 5% dominance, health, and restoration. So basically, this is as you're using a support role as a healer. As a tank, it's not always practical. You're going to be near the group. That's why it's so beneficial for healers to run out of the Gemini. You can run multiple supercharges, like I said before, like Speed Drain and Pheromone Bloom, which will have 30-second cooldowns, 2,500 costs. You can pretty much span them endlessly throughout an entire raid and be able to buff the entire group. So that's why this artifact is so handy. I'll show an example of it in the rotation, but that's why you're kind of in 2 different categories. It just depends. So if you're looking for pure, I'll touch on pure healing first. So pure healing is going to be Transformation Card, Page of Destiny, and Purple Healing Ray. So Transformation Card increases your critical chances on all your heals. So it does reduce the overall healing done, but with the criticals, it makes up for that. So Transformation Card ties directly into Page of Destiny, Purple Healing Ray first. So Purple Healing Ray, I'll show this in an example as well, just so that you're not, if you haven't seen one of my previous videos, or if you're not sure exactly how this text works, but healing charges your Purple Healing Ray up to 4 times at rank 200, 5 times if it's going to be 160 or 120. Your total restoration with Purple Light. Once charged, your next priority heal or group heal will gain benefits and expends all Purple Light. So if you hit your priority heal, you'll gain your healed target will gain a shield equal to 2 times your restoration, which absorbs 20% incoming damage and resets your cooldown. And the group heal restores 20% power. So if you place a group heal, so places a heal over time on you and your allies for 8 seconds, increases heal over time by 25%, and resets the cooldown of both and restores 20% power. So it just depends on what situation you can be running it. So that, like I said before, with the skill points, Specking to Might and Power, this what helps you restore power yourself and become your personal battery. So this one, so the Purple Healing Ray really promotes a spammy style, because the more healing, the faster you do, you'll be able to continually proc into the priority heal or the group heal proc, depending on what you want. So that ties in Transformation Card, so that you're getting criticals on all your heals. So the amount of healing you're actually doing is increased, which feeds into purple healing rate, so you gain that faster. So if you took away a transformation card, your healings won't crit as much, which means that it'll take a little bit longer to earn the purple healing rate procs. So Page of Destiny. So when a group heal heals a player above 40% health, it places a stack of Revivify on them, max 10 stacks for 30 seconds, and refreshes total duration of existing stacks. That just means that after 10 stacks, each time you hit a group heal, it refreshes everything for another 30 seconds. So if an affected player drops below 40% health, Revivify will be triggered, expending all stacks and healing for an amount based on the stacks. And then also at the higher ranks in the artifacts, increases your healing from group heal by 20% for targets below 40. And at 200, your group heal goes from 4 heals to 6. And I'll touch on priority and group heals once we touch on the loadout here. But Page of Destiny is basically, why it's so powerful is if you're doing content, doesn't matter if it's lead or regular, if there's a massive skull attack and players weren't blocking, this will take them, if it takes them down to obviously the below 40% health, or you're expecting a player almost to die, the Page of Destiny proc will kick in and save them. So it's nothing you have to do as a healer. So if you weren't able to react, or if you're stunned or anything like that, or obviously if you use your priority heal, it's only going to heal one player instead of the entire group. Or all the group that they had the Page of Destiny stacks on. So it's a passive save heal if you look at it like that. So Page of Destiny is a passive heal. You don't have to react to it. All you have to do is just make sure you maintain your stacks, and you're perfectly fine. This one, I've seen Page of Destiny save entire raids before, save entire runs, save entire players. It's just it's a very, very strong healing artifact. So now we're going to touch on to a Gemini spam build. So now you're looking at Scrap of Soul Cloak. Scrap of Soul Cloak at 200 will restore 7% supercharge after a supercharge ability. And that does not stack with Extend Supercharge. So Extend Supercharge was a chest mod right here. So using Supercharge ability restores 5% of your max supercharge. This may affect or occur every 30 seconds. So if your Scrap of Soul Cloak's at 200, obviously it's 7% instead of 5. So all Scrap of Soul Cloak will do in your Gemini spam build is make sure that you can continually use your supercharge without having to regen too much. It just makes you to have a supercharge off cooldown each time. And then obviously I have the Gemini. And then for this example, I would run Page of the Destiny over purple healing rate just because of that that survivor factor. If you're running regular content, Page of Destiny may not always be handy, but there's still plenty of skull attacks in regular that can kill players. But for me personally, I would much rather always have Page of Destiny as an artifact, just as that kind of healing crutch, that kind of like that, oh crap, move, something went wrong, and you get the healing from it. So a bonus artifact that you can choose to run, this is not, don't take this that you need to level it. This is just if you have like a sale or already have these artifacts leveled. Philosopher's Stone is very handy for healers. So at 200, it doubles the duration of the health regeneration buff, damage buff, and the power-free casting. So that means once you drop a Philosopher's Stone artifact, once you drop it it ties into your supply drop, you can actually just spam your rotation off cooldown and not have to worry about any power loss. So if there's a situation where another healer goes down, or if there's a fight like say Fractured Gods for Elite in the final boss where there's a lot of passive damage, like a lot of burst damage, a lot of dot damage, you can basically just drop this and not have to worry about the controller. You can just use all your powers off cooldown basically, and be perfectly fine. So this is just like a bonus artifact. It's very handy for healers, but like I said before, it is expensive obviously to keep leveling everything, so don't feel like it's required. It's not. It's just basically a pure bonus. And we can touch quickly on the consumables. As a nature healer, or sorry, not nature healer, but any healer in general, you're always going to be Nutri Soders. Nutri is going to increase your restoration. So that is the only consumable that you're going to be worrying about. Chronomatic emitters or personal dampening fields, really not necessary to heal. Even a personal breakout trinket, I didn't find that handy as a healer. It's just not required. You're much better off going with like the restoration trinket, just a regular pet damage trinket, orbital strike, and supply drop. And then if you choose to have your supply drop work with Philosopher's Stone, which I can show an example of as well as in the loadout rotation. Okay, so where to get Affinity Mods? So in the watchtower, you're going to the tech wing. So in the tech wing here, you'll see Affinity Mod generator. So in the west, I mean, I can't speak to where it is in the Hall of Doom, but at least in the watchtower, it's in the tech wing. You want to take Restoration A, Restoration B. Here you want to take Healing Conversion. So once installed in your generator, now this only applies to people who wear Elite gear. At least with the Restoration A and B, you only have to have 4 pieces, which is really practical. Even if you're a casual player, it's really quite easy to have 4 pieces of Elite gear. 6 and 8 is a little bit more difficult, but these procs really don't scale much anymore. So this one, if you wear 6 pieces after you use a priority heal, you reduce the power cost of your next superpower use within 15 seconds. So that's handy. I mean, it's not completely broken, but it's just handy to have. And then honestly, for the 8 proc, you've got Field Medic, but the aura on Field Medic, you have to be basically standing beside someone to be able to heal them. So it's really just not practical. And the heals are small. But I mean, if you have a full 8 proc, then you might as well take something that's going to be beneficial. So let's touch on the generator mods, and then we'll actually go to our layer and put these into the right slots. Okay, so for generator mods, these ones are going to be earned throughout content. You're going to have some cases where it's an episode where they drop into loot boxes, and you can just claim your generator mods that you want from there. Other DLCs like Flashpoint will have them on the vendor. So if you scroll down to the vendor here, you can see the generator mods here. So you're looking for Restoration. So you want to make sure you have 4 of these. Into the other ones, you want to make sure you take Power. And I mean, might or prec really doesn't matter. I mean, technically, since you're using a weapon, you can be prec, but I mean, this is completely if you're a support role. So depending if you're like Electric Might or Electric Precision in your DPS stance, then that's what you take for that. So that I'm not going to worry about taking that. That's completely what you are for your spec. So now we have generator mods and the Affinity mods. We go to our layer. And once we get to the mainframe in our base, we're going to be changing out the Affinity mods into Restoration A, B, Healing Conversion, and Field Medic. And then here we have Restoration. Into our yellows. And then we have Power into our blues. And like I said before, whatever your reds are going to be completely determined on what you are for your damage stance. And your general mods, these ones just drop in content. So you could have Urgent War Fronts, you can have bases and league halls. It's completely what you get. But it doesn't impact your healing at all. So let's touch on loadouts. Okay, so our loadouts for electricity. First, we're going to touch on the pure healing loadout. So the pure healing is going to be involving Transformation, Page of Destiny, and a Purple Healing Ray. So for the first one, you're going to be taking your priority heal, which is Bioelectric Surge. A priority heal just means that it's going to restore heals to yourself and the most injured group members. So it's priority heals only going to you and one other person that has the most damage. Next, we'll be taking our group heal, which is going to be Recover. So group heals will heal you and up to 3 group members. But if you have Page of Destiny at 200, it changes the group heal to additional 2 targets. Next, we'll be taking Galvanize. Galvanize is heal over time, which so Bioelectric Surge and Recover are going to be burst heals, which means you get 1 big heal. And Galvanize, which is going to be heal over time, which means you get a lower amount of heals, but it's spread out over a duration. Next, we'll be taking Biocapacitor. So Biocap instantly restore health to yourself and the 7 injured group members, so it's basically the entire group. If one of your group members falls below 45% with the next 30 seconds, and some of the health will be restored. So Biocap does kind of fight with Page of Destiny, because Page of Destiny will proc in first. So there may be situations where Biocap isn't going to be used, But however, if you're in a content where it's not long enough to build up your stacks, because each time where it places a stack on Page of Destiny, it's going to be a group heal. So that means it's going to be 3 seconds. So it means it's going to take 30 seconds to be able to apply 10 stacks to a target. So not all fights are going to be that long. So if there's going to be damage taken, at least biocap will be that extra insurance. But it does somewhat fight with it. And then you're going to be taking Flux, which is going to be your shield, and Group Transducer, which is your shield supercharge. So there's one heal that is going to be left off. This is my personal preference, is Electrogenesis. So Electrogenesis is also a heal over time, but the problem is it creates an aura on yourself and your closest group member. And so in most content, or pretty much always all content, you're not going to be able to place it on the tank because the healer's not near the tank. So if say you're doing like a raid where, like, it doesn't even matter the raid, it could be like one of the new ones like Flash the Future or Flash-tastic Voyage. If the tank's on Grodd or if the tank's on Brainiac and you're healing in the back by the door or something, or healing back in the back of the room, if you place Electrogenesis, it's not going to be on the tank, which is where you want it. You want your heals on the tank because the tank's actually taking damage. That's going to be on yourself and your group. So yeah, if they're close enough, they're going to get the heals from Genesis in the group, but if they're all spread out, there won't be. So it's just it's a power that you can't just pop and forget. You need to be able to have proper positioning, which most of the time you won't be able to. So it's in my sense, is kind of a wasted heal. So that's why I don't prefer running it. And then the other heal that you may consider would be Electro Burst. Once again, this is just a personal preference of mine. I really haven't even used Electro Burst when I've been electric healing. So I mean, this used to be in the past a lot better to heal tanks with, but now it's just basically it might work in alerts or situations like that, but it's just not necessary in raids at all. So to show you an example here. Let's see if I can have to take some damage to be able to proc the purple here to show you. So you can see my purple light is being built up. And I just procced it for the personal shield. So once if you saw that animation, I'll do it again, but once you saw that animation build up, that's the purple light proccing for purple healing ray. So we'll go back to it here, and now we'll use the group heal example. So the personal shield, that was me using proccing it with a priority heal. Now we'll proc it with group heal. So now it's going to proc, and now I just used it. So now it's going to basically just create another heal over time for me with reset and cooldown. So what that means is, so we can kind of go an example here. So what purple healing ray, what it means by 4 times your total restoration. So if I go to my restoration stats, 65,982, so I would have to heal for 4 times that amount. So if I'm at like rank 160 or rank 120, it's 5 times. So I would have to heal 5 times my restoration. So 5 times 65,982. So once you do that amount of heals, you'll have that ability to proc. So in a big situation where it's a raid where all group members are taking a lot of damage consistently, you'll be able to proc it almost continually. And that's where transformation card comes in handy as well, because all your heals are going to crit. Faster you're in the purple healing ray, faster you proc it, faster you gain faster you gain the 20 restore 20% power, if I can talk properly, and the faster you reset both your priority and your group heal. So just a very, very powerful combo these 3 are for pure healing. Okay, so just to show you the proc on Page of Destiny, what that'll look like, I'm just going to keep taking damage and making sure I don't drop below for my group heal. So if I drop below 40%, it's going to proc early. But we'll try our best to get to 10 stacks here. And that's probably going to be enough of an example there. So now we'll let ourselves drop. And there's your Page of Destiny proc. So when my health dropped, I got that automatic heal. And it can crit as well. And the same thing. So if it was like a little stack there, that's purple healing ray proccing. And we'll wait to see the smaller proc. Oh. And there's your smaller proc. So you can hear it by the sound too, but I mean if you always maintain that 10 stacks, there's always going to be a large heal. And that's more of like your lifesaver heal. So it's completely passive. There's nothing you have to do. All you have to keep doing is just hitting group heal every 30 seconds. And then for an example with Philosopher's Stone. So we'll just kind of take out transformation card for this example. So there's Doomsday. I can pop Philosopher's Stone. No power is being used except for the initial power. I know we walked away, but you saw the effects there. So I still have the duration I'm here, so I can jump back into the cloud, heal myself. Purple healing range proc to myself there for the shield. And you get the example there. The Flux is going to be your 4-man shield. So yes, it's not going to apply to everyone, but in DC Universe Online itself, shields are very, very strong. In certain raids, they will have shield penetration mechanics where they aren't. In a situation like that, you just drop Flux and obviously drop Group Inducer as well. It's not going to be beneficial, but it's very rare now. There was a few DLCs in a row where they had shield penetration mechanics, but now they don't. They kind of taken that away. So, for a Gemini spam build, we're going to swap the artifacts here. So we got Scrap, Gemini, and Page of Destiny. And for loadouts, you get a couple options here. You can drop Biocap, keep Flux, and then use Pheromone Bloom. Because at least Pheromone Bloom will heal, so let loose a point blank explosion of plants, damaging them, and you heal yourself over time. So it's just going to be yourself, but it's also going to feed into the Gemini heals. But if you're in a pure Gem Spam group, you're going to see a lot of healers go Pheromone Bloom and Speed Drain. Or whatever healer equivalent. It's just that these are both 2,500 power costs, so it's pretty much I can heal myself endlessly. So we'll have to find another Spore Cloud here. So once I build up enough supercharge, I can pop Bloom. As you see here, we've got your green circle. I've got the extra healing from that. And even though I barely had enough supercharge to use one, now I can use a second, so I can feed back into it. And obviously it's going to help to start with full supercharge. But as you can see, I have supercharge earned by the time I can use again. So now there's another 30 seconds. Put on the clock. There we go. Earned another supercharge. Now after 30 seconds up, I can hit Speed Drain. So with Scrap the Soul Cloak, with these 2500s, I can pretty much spam these endlessly. I'm always going to be able to earn it. So just imagine alternating these for DPS. No matter what's in the group, I'm always going to have it. So the only thing, make sure you're in combat when you use it. If you're in combat, it's not going to apply the green circle, but I mean in a raid, you're always going to be in combat, so during actual encounters. But this is all it is. So don't look at this from like healing perspective. This is just more for you can help the group in terms of like the controllers. You can use their supercharges more often for power and shields. The DPS will obviously be able to spam their supercharges. But it's at a case where I can almost just sit here and do nothing, and I've almost earned my supercharge. So I was completely at 0, and now I'm at like 90%. So I only have to hit like 1 or 2 powers. Bam! I already have bloom. And this is because I started with low supercharge. So if you start from 100, you're never going to run out for the entire raid. You'll be able to spam these consistently. Every 30 seconds, you have 2 supercharges. And just like there. So I'm not even doing anything, and I've already earned speed drain. And you can do it back to back, like every 6 seconds it expires. So after the 6 seconds, then you have to wait for the 30-second cooldown to come back. But that's going to be a Gemini. So you don't need Biocap because you already have Page of Destiny. You're just going to be using Bioelectric Surge, basically your priority, your group heal for Page of Destiny, Galvanize, which is your main heal over time, and then Flex is just your personal shield. Well, I wouldn't say personal shield, but group shield. And then your 2 supercharges. So using that as a rotation. So rotations for healers. So even if I'm using the pure one or I'm not, there's not rotations per se. It's always going to be reactive or preactive. So say for example the group's going to take a lot of damage. Obviously, if the group's at full health, I'm not just going to keep sitting doing like. If I have to refresh my stack on Page of Destiny, I'll hit a group heal. But there's no point to keep hitting priority heal if the group's at full damage or if no one's taking damage. Same with the Galvanize. I'm not going to just keep sitting spamming Galvanize. So it's really all like as a DPS there's a rotation. As a tank I can pretty much show you rotation where this is what you should do in terms of like a shield rotation, but with healing there's really not. It all depends on obviously what you're doing. If there's going to be massive damage over time, if there's going to be a massive burst damage, or obviously just spamming your Gemini. So don't think of it as there's an actual proper rotation for healing because there's not. It's just knowing what abilities to use when. And for electric, with it being a burst heal, you're pretty much using these off cooldown, which is what ties into using might and power, what ties into using the super powered spec, what ties into using power efficiency. So for electric, you're pretty much hitting these off cooldown each time, regardless of the fact, because that's where your heals are. Flex is going to be, depending on the group, is only going to cover yourself and 3 players, so that's going to be situational. But pretty much here, you're always going to use your abilities off cooldown. And you've set yourself up to do that by either in a pure healing spec, you always have purple healing ray, which will account for extra power, or in your skill point spec, you've accounted for being able to be a bit spammy with your power. So there's electric healing in a nutshell.